Welcome to Pencils and Lipstick. This is a podcast for indie authors. I'm Kat Caldwell, novelist, short story writer, and book coach. Here on Pencils and Lipstick, we're obsessed with all things story, and it is my goal to bring you the writing tips that you need to make your novel come to life. Hello, Becky. It's nice to have you back.
Hi, Kat.
We're back for our Craft and Connect episode 3.
Yes. So. And of course, we've already been talking for like an hour, so I don't know what we have left to say.
We should probably record this. People want to hear us. Today, what are we talking about?
We are talking about identifying your ideal reader. So this is the second pillar of how I teach writers to market. We talked about your core values, which are the way that your readers will see you and how you communicate with them, connect with them. In an authentic way that feels good to you and is something that you can maintain and do consistent marketing. And if anybody has any questions about that, you can go back. What are those episodes, Kat, that they can go back
Good
and
question.
look at?
I'll link them in the show notes.
Do it. I was like, oh, I'm going to do it.
Every third week of the month. So I guess we could count backwards. Today is episode 306. So I guess it would be 301. And 297.
8. So yeah. And so I just have to say, that anybody that's got this many podcasts under their belt, that's a big congratulations to you. Because that's huge. That is just huge. And I showed Kat something the other day from a romance writer who acknowledged Pencils and Lipstick in the back of one of her books for being an influencer in how she was
so
writing and learning her craft.
I really need that
amazing.
A copy of that book. I need to get it.
Oh yeah, I was because I do this weird thing when I pick up a book if I'm reading it, like this. And I go straight to the acknowledgments because I want to see who helped them.
Really?
And I saw Pencils and Lipstick and I was like, oh, gotta take a picture and send this to Kat.
That was so cool. I was just like, what is she talking about? Who mentioned me in a book?
You do stuff all the time, but when you actually see where someone is acknowledging you and you didn't have to go, hey, would you like to put me in the back of your book? That is so cool because you're making a difference and it just shows the value that you are giving to your readers and your listeners. So yeah, I just wanted to say that's really awesome for you.
I do remember that. I was on my way to Roanoke, I think, driving when I saw it, because I do the terrible thing where I have my GPS on my dashboard, and then I saw you message me and I was like, what is this? So I tossed my phone over.
8:00 at night. Oh my God.
I was like, look up this, right now. Asking my daughter, see what she's talking about. What does this mean?
I was just excited. And I was like, what are you doing? I'm like, this is so exciting for Kat. Awesome.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. So that was fun.
So we acknowledge that and celebrate your wins because it is a really big accomplishment.
It is a big win.
It is a big win.
So I'm very excited about that. Yeah, I'm going to have to go buy a copy of that book. Just because.
Yeah. And it's a really good book too.
Is it?
Can I plug it? Can I give a plug?
Plug it.
Oh, yeah. So this book is by Jamie Bradley, and it's 3,000 Reasons to Stay, and it's part of a 3-book series that she has. And it's
I like that title.
The subgenre is it's a military romance, and it's a heroine or a main female character who is normal and has children and is trying to figure out how to make a go of it now that she's actually able to make decisions for herself.
Nice.
And it's good.
Nice.
Very good.
I'm gonna have to get that one. Kind of liking military romance right now, which is so funny to me. When I think of the term military romance, I don't like the term for some reason because but I don't know why. But whenever I read them, there's just something. There's a disconnect in my head with the term and the vibe that you end up getting. Yeah. I don't know why.
I love military. That's one of my favorite subgenres.
Well, it's so fun because you already kind of get the characters. You're like, okay, I get it. I don't know. There's just something, but it's like when people say military sci-fi, and all I can think of is the white soldiers and with Darth Vader.
When you said military sci-fi, my mind went totally blank. I'm like, what's that? Military sci-fi. What does that look like?
Yeah,
Huh. Captain Kirk? I don't
I
know.
know that's the thing, but maybe I should read them and then I would understand better.
Yes, but she writes these characters very well, and she is uh,
Is she
she comes
good?
from a military family, and so she knows how to make these characters believable and understandable. Um,
Yeah.
so anyway, that's
Nice.
my
Little
plug for
plug.
Jamie Bradley and her books because she's really good.
Okay, so she knows her ideal reader though, doesn't she?
She absolutely does, and I did not ask her for permission to talk about her, so hopefully she's okay with this. But she is a mom of 4 children. She is a military spouse. Her husband was in the Marines. So but she comes from a farming background. So these two worlds colliding. But she writes for moms who are doing the soccer and the kids and the husband and the job and so she's really relatable as someone who knows who her ideal reader is, and her characters speak to those things. And so
Mhm.
she's really, really true to who she is as an author and what influences her writing. And um, knowing that a woman needs to juggle those things but still find space for herself to grow and to become who she's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And when you have all those that many things to do, it's like with Jamie in the writing, she's like, I have to write and I've got to put it in. I'm the mom sitting at the hockey game and I'm on my phone and I'm typing notes and I'm trying to watch and I'm trying to cheer. And it's like I look around and there's all these other moms there, and they're some in work clothes, and they're just like we are overwhelmed. And these books show us that, it's okay.
Yeah.
It is
That
really okay
we're
to take
not
time for yourself.
alone.
No, it's a universal thing. And she's really does have a good handle on her ideal reader. And she's very relatable. While I don't have a child at home anymore, I totally understand where
I
she's coming
remember
from. And I
that.
find her very, very easy to watch and to listen to. And she's so relatable because she's just telling the truth. She's
Yeah.
talking about, what it's like because she still has a young child at home. So
Right.
she's got
Right.
stair-stepped 4. So she's doing it all,
She's done
and,
it all. And if her husband was Marines, she did a lot of it by herself.
most likely, yes.
So,
And she also has another job that she does, and, so I have a lot of respect for her because
yeah.
she's fighting through it and figuring out how all these things line up so that she can still write,
Right.
because that's the goal, is the writing and creating these books, and I think she's doing a great job of it. I'm
So,
happy that I get to work with her.
oh, you get to work with her too. Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Nice.
Yes.
So,
She's awesome.
why
She's teaching me things, which I love.
I mean, that's always good. It's a reciprocal. Why do
Yeah.
you think having a handle on your ideal reader helps with your writing? Like,
I think that if you really are tuned into who your ideal reader is, the stories begin to have more purpose
mhm,
because you know what they are expecting from you. You know what you're putting in your story, and you know that you have a clear-cut ideal reader that you're writing for. It's
mhm,
your story.
right.
But if you understand the elements that they are attracted to in your writing, it helps you to continue to be like, all right, I'm writing this because this is a story about, and yeah, I'm going back to you, a woman who has a past that's not going to let it influence her future, and she will push through, and and knowing that my ideal reader is someone who connects to that
Right.
allows me to really clearly in my mind know where this story is going to go,
Yeah.
because we're going to watch her transformation from something that is holding her back to her realizing that she can do and be more than what she's done in the past, if that's what she chooses. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it gives you, I mean, does that make sense? It makes sense to me, but hey,
No,
sometimes,
I think it makes sense. I think it also it goes into a little bit of not being persuaded into putting things into your story or changing your story based on a writing group's opinion or something online that is said. I mean, I've had people give opinions like beta readers, like, well, if you had made this character this way, I was like, well, that has nothing to do with the story I'm trying to tell because the
yeah,
story is more than just what the characters are doing. The story is what you're trying to relay, the feeling, right? The vibe,
yeah,
the everything about it. and you won't be swayed. I mean, I used to be swayed because it was like, oh no, what am I doing wrong? Right.
Well, and that brings up another thing that I think about, and I was telling someone the other day is that, you know, your story is yours.
Hmm.
Now, people can help you make your craft better. People can point things out, or a coach can point things out that maybe this is too much information or this is not really contributing to the story, but it's your story. And if anybody tells you, you know, I don't like the way this character's written, I don't, okay, then you might not be my ideal reader. But
Right.
I appreciate you buying the book.
Right.
But it's like you were saying, you read somebody, you thought they were going to be somebody that you would really like, but you did not enjoy the story because it was not what you expected.
Right. Well,
And
and there were a
it,
couple of things that pulled me in the way that my brain thinks and the way that I see the world out of the story to go, what now?
yes.
Which is not what
So
you want. Like,
we were talking earlier about worldview, and so we want to get back to that. But I do want to, for everybody
yeah.
out there, let's look at, and I will read this. What is the definition of an ideal reader? So, an ideal reader is a specific, imagined persona for whom the writer creates their work, representing the superfan that's most likely to enjoy what you are writing, and purchase and connect with the story or the content. It's not a broad demographic. It is defined by specific interests, motivations, emotions, habits,
Yeah.
and so understanding those, even though it's you are imagining who this person is, you are looking at your themes in your writing and why you are writing what you are writing, and you are thinking to yourself, who is this person? Who is this person that wants my story the way I write it? Who is
Yeah.
interested in this theme
This is the
or these
person who's
themes?
going to word of mouth tell everyone that they need to read it. They're the person
Mhm.
that is like your the closest circle of fans, right? That person that's
Mhm.
like, I'm buying that right away. It doesn't matter
Yes.
like what it is. I don't even need to read the blurb. I might, but that it's like if you think about one author, that you're like the minute that they come out with a book, you are that super fan. You are their ideal reader. So we're
Yes.
not talking so many times we want our books to be for, I think when we niche down, we'll like, oh, first for everyone. And then we figure out that that's not like, okay, romance readers. No.
Yeah, and we know that that broad sweep, and again, we've talked about, saying you're writing a book for everyone. I mean, it's cannot possibly be true in
Uh,
except in very, very specific miracle cases.
Even the Bible's not for everybody. Like, there's no,
No,
I don't know
but
what book is for everyone.
you have to be, as I always say, you have to be realistic. You have to look
Mhm.
at, why are you doing this? What are you writing? And do you
Mhm.
really think everybody in the world is going to pick up your contemporary romance that talks about, over the fence love with a new neighbor? Probably not.
No.
And that's
No.
okay, because I get coached by a very well-known, successful marketing coach, and um, she's been doing this for years, and she's considered an expert in her field. And she was saying that you have to really be honest about who you want to be your ideal reader, your ideal client, and get the junk out of your email list, your followers, because yes, you want to say, I have 100,000 followers, but they're not people who are going to buy your service, buy your book, because they're just, a lot of them are tire kickers. And so when she really
Because
got
they're tired.
strategic, she got strategic about who she wanted to work with.
Yeah.
That went way, way down. Her following went down from like something crazy, like maybe 30,000, 40,000, even higher, down to like 10. But those 10 have
Mhm.
stayed with her for a solid, 2 or 3 years, and they're rotating through the things that they like about her, and the
Right.
ability to hire her services. So it's the same thing with book readers, with your
Yeah.
ideal reader,
Yeah.
is you don't want 100,000 people hanging on and not buying your books, because
That's so
that's wasted time.
it's wasted time, wasted money, and it's
Mhm.
frustrating because you start thinking like it just gets lost, right? You and
Yes.
I think the as a writer, you're trying in the beginning, you're trying to get people on your list or people to follow you or people, and you're trying to do all these things. Like the biggest advice I can get is to listen to Becky and niche from the beginning because, but it's so easy to just be like, well, it is contemporary romance. It is, yes, it is. But if you really look at like, if you put your book into the hands of five, let's just say women, and you're wanting the best reviews possible, I bet you can come up with a couple people you don't actually really want your book in their hands. Like
Yeah.
because they're going to be, you already kind of have that feeling that they're going to be looking for something. I have a friend who reads only literary, only New York Times, and she prefers to reread things rather than pick up a new book that will not satisfy her
Yeah.
liking. I don't, and I love her dearly, but I don't push my books on her because I don't think that they are
No.
going to satisfy what she's looking for. She's not
Right.
going to
They're
be
not
mean
going
and give
to.
me a bad review, but there are people out there who will.
But that's because if you are trying to appeal to people who are not your ideal reader, you're going to get some bad reviews
Yeah,
because you're throwing it towards people who don't like what you're writing or maybe don't like your themes, but it is in that, well, I'm a romance reader. I'll read this, but
I'll
it's like,
read
no,
anything. And a lot of people
yeah,
say I'll
yeah.
read anything, and that's
And
not.
it's not true. I think we all struggle with this fear of what we perceive as our success. And
Mhm.
so we want to have, for a writer, if that's what you choose, the end game being people buying your book, right? So you're afraid to not try to encompass this huge, huge demographic of people because what if nobody wants to buy your book,
Right.
right?
Which is such a catch 22 because the broader you are, the more likely
The
you
less
are to
chance you have of
not.
people buying your book. Yes.
Yes. So it gets
Yeah.
like, so I think you can use a great example of like that lit RPG. I think it's very like gamer Dungeons and Dragons category. It's not even really a BISAC category, but those guys, because they're mostly men who write it, some women, but they knew their ideal reader. And it's actually a very small section of society that will read these books who understand the books. Like if I read it a lit RPG, I'm going to be like, I have no idea. I've never gamed in my life. I have no idea what
No,
I'm doing. I move the
wouldn't be
remote
my
like
thing.
this because I want them to go faster. I'm not their
See,
ideal reader, but they have managed to make a lot of money and make full careers, like not even being found on Amazon. That is how well, if you niche down enough and you're like, there are 10,000 men out there who will read my books. Well, I'm
mhm,
only going for them. I don't care about anyone else. And you think, well, that's
yeah,
not enough people, but it is.
it is. Because the thing about that is that when somebody loves what you do, then they are going to tell people who don't know you exist
Yeah.
that they know will love your book,
Right. At
right?
their
Or the way
Dungeons
you
and
write, or
Dragons
the
game.
things. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I look at people on social media and I'm amazed. Like I follow a Staffordshire Terrier named Enzo. He talks. He's
Oh,
beautiful. I love him. And I'm like, how can, and he's got like 500,000 followers, this dog, and his mom and his dad. And it's like, this is crazy. But because we're a very specific group and we love these dogs, everybody, and I show everybody in my family now follows Enzo because I'm like, have you ever seen this? And he's talking, and they're like,
it's so
and it's
cute.
just so yeah, he's just adorable. And it's like my husband's like, we're not getting another dog. I'm like, but I have to have one of those.
Because
But
you love
anyway, because I love him. But it's the same thing. It's like you be strategic and very specific about who would want to read your book,
Right.
and you connect with those people.
Okay.
And then as they again, we're going to go back, know, like, trust you, understand what themes are running through your books, why you're such a good writer of these books, why this story is important. And then they are going to say, Judy, you have got to read Kat Caldwell's book. It is so good. You would love it. She's going to go, I've never heard of her. Oh, well, let me show you.
Right.
All right. And then it builds, but you have to get past that fear,
Mm,
which we all have. I mean, I did it when I first started my coaching. I was like, "Oh, romance, everybody in ro" it's like, it's a hard lesson to learn,
mhm.
but when you start seeing that you're not being successful and you can't figure out why people aren't coming to you, it's because there's too much.
Yeah,
There's
that is
just
true.
too
Yeah,
much.
yeah. I mean,
And
think
when
about
you
going to Barnes& and Noble to the romance section. Like,
oh,
it it's like everything looks good and nothing looks good, and then I leave without a book. I mean,
yes.
weirdly, like, I especially get very overwhelmed, and I go there specifically to buy a book. Most of the time,
Yeah.
you're gonna end up buying a book on the little tables that they have
Just
specifically
what I was
picked
gonna
out for you.
say. Yes, those little tables are brilliant marketing because I can go over and go, "Oh, the new, um, rom-coms for the summer are right here on this table." And then but when I'm like you, when I go to the shelves, I just kind of stand there and I'm like, "Wow, I don't even." And if I don't know an author,
Yeah, it's hard.
I read it and I'm not sure. I'm like, "Am I gonna like this?" Because I don't know
Mm,
anything about that author. So I have to go back. I probably am not gonna buy it at that point, but I will go back and look up that
like,
author,
yeah.
and then I'm gonna see what they're about and what they're writing, and I am someone who, once I like an author, I will read everything,
Right.
and occasionally they might write a book that I don't like, but I'm like, "They're writing another, I'm trying that one." I
Yes,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm like
yeah,
everybody else. I have trigger points. I have things that I don't like to read about. That's personal to me. But it might not bother anybody else. But in the
yeah.
scheme of things, I love this writer and I love what he or she does. And
Well,
I will keep on.
and that's a good point to make where, like, you now have a relationship almost, like, in your head, at least, with this writer of, like, I like their books, and even if they wrote, you know, I don't know what's a trigger point. Like, I guess mine has a war scene in it. I don't wanna read about that. Okay, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna wait for her next book or his next book,
Yeah.
but you're
Yeah.
not going to badmouth it really, whereas, like, if it
No.
you know what I mean? It's a because it's a tricky place these days. What you really want
Yeah.
are these fans who are like, "Oh, no, but if you didn't like that one, then you have to read this one,"
Yeah.
because of these things, and you don't let it bother you as much, I guess.
No, and it's true that, like, when I'm thinking about what you're saying, the story that I've got in my mind was that, yeah, there was something in there I did not like, that thread that was running through, but the other stuff was all the things that I liked.
Mhm.
There was strong women, there was, humor, it was in a foreign country, all of these things I liked, but there are things that your characters have to get over that might be a trigger for someone.
Yeah, and you just
'Cause we've experienced it. But you need to understand, and this is what we were talking about was, um, if your ideal reader, what is their pain point? What is it that they are trying to improve, or what is gonna transform them? And, one of the things we're talking about Trisha O'Malley, who I just happen to love, and she writes romance, and it's got mystical elements and all kinds of wonderful things in there, but the stories are about women who are coming into their power and
mm,
who, before they start acknowledging that they have this power, feel like they don't fit, like they're stuck, like they can't get anywhere and they don't understand. And of course, then we turn it back on ourselves that there must be something wrong with me,
right,
right? And so her female characters are all coming, in a lot of cases, from a place like this, and how they get around it and how they start to understand that I have this special thing about me, which we all do. We all have something special about
right,
ourselves.
right.
So this character saying, I'm acknowledging that, yeah, I may be different, but there's something about me that's valuable and unique and magical. And when I start to acknowledge that and I don't push it away because maybe I don't fit the societal boundaries, I'm suddenly accepting myself and I'm able to allow myself to love or to have friends or to not be so afraid because I'm in a different place and maybe I'm living through the discomfort of change,
Yeah,
and it's okay because I've been there. I understand that and I love that. I love to see women in
right.
these books who come into themselves and they become
Well,
accepting and
and I think So when you say pain point, because I will say, like, as the young mom, I wasn't that young, but I had the young kids, like trying to write my first book, and then hearing the word pain point. Can we get into that a little bit more? Because I think you hit it on like something I would have understood better. It's like, I've been through that, and now I want to read about women who have gone through that. So like her ideal reader, I would almost think, is 35 or older women who have had expectations on them, who have gotten to the point in their life where they're like, screw this, or something has happened to force them, whatever that is, more than like maybe not that a 20-year-old can't read it. And that's the whole point. Like, of course they
Yeah.
can read it, but your ideal reader. So when you say pain point, how can we explain that? Because as a fiction writer, I was always like, nobody has a pain point.
Yeah. Well, in your last book, your character, the male character, he's dealing with things that are traumatic in his life. She's come back from war, right?
Right,
So she's got these things that she's trying to get over. They neither one of them are ready to be in love with each other.
right.
That's not even on their radar because they're dealing with these issues that they have. So if a reader is someone who thinks I've been divorced. I'm never gonna find love again. I don't need it. I don't want it. But then what they're doing is they're isolating themselves. And so if the characters in your book are protecting themselves, isolating themselves so they don't get hurt again, so they don't have to feel things, which I think women do a lot of times. I know I tend to isolate because I'm like, I'm not fitting anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to go through this pain again. But when you find someone that you love and these characters found each other and they work through whatever their conflicts are, then it kind of shows you, wow, you know what? Am I doing a disservice to myself because I don't trust anyone with my heart? I don't trust anyone because I've made bad decisions. But if I can read something that makes me think about it and go, am I cutting off some part of my life by being totally defensive and protective of myself so that I'm really not living.
Oh,
Um,
that's, yeah, yeah.
so to me, that's and I when I pick up something like that, whether it's a second chance or people coming out of bad places, because we've all been in bad places,
Right.
everybody has. So when you're in that portion of whether your heart's breaking, somebody's betrayed you, you have no money, you have no resources, you're all by yourself. When you read something about someone who is, it's a universal kind of thing, and you listen to this author giving this character options, giving this character things to think about, then you think about them and you're like, okay, that's the transformation. If your character takes me to a place where I'm actually able to think about something and think about, you know what, maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
And I
That's,
want that feeling. I want
that's,
that feeling of allowing myself to be fully in my present and in my life.
yeah. And I think that goes back to what we talked about anyway, about the authenticity of your brand and the authenticity of what you want to write because of who you are, and then just owning it. And when you
Yeah.
find that, it's going to a lot of times be that pain point, right? Like, if
Mhm.
almost when you sit back and think about, like, what are the things that you love writing about? What are the themes that tend to come into all of your books? Like, and mine are pretty much like, your past does not define, it doesn't have to define your future, because that's
Right.
usually the struggle that they're coming up with in all different ways, right? And but this does go into being authentic enough to write the stories that you really care about, because we talked a
Right.
little bit about the, like, writing to market, and it doesn't mean like not using tropes. We're all using tropes, we're all using second chance, or fake dating and funny things like that. But when you actually write, because I'm not going to mention the book, but we talked about it before, of like, this book that just the books that just leave you like, okay,
Yeah.
like, to me, that's the author trying to make the book fit so
Yes.
wide an audience that it doesn't leave you with anything. And it ends up in the little library down the street.
Yeah.
Like I don't go
Well,
telling anyone
if
about it.
if I, as a reader, have to struggle to figure out what's going on, or
Or like
there's
what the
things
point
happening,
is.
yeah, what's the point? This doesn't make any sense. I mean, and that is kind of heartbreaking for me because I really have always firmly believed that if you write a book, it should get into the hands of your reader,
Yeah.
right? But if you don't know who your reader is,
Ugh,
and you
you're
know,
trying to be like everyone.
right, you're trying to be like everyone, you're trying to be like everybody else, and I have an expectation because that's what you're presenting to me, and then I get into your book and I'm like, I'm not getting this. And it breaks my heart if I can't finish a book. And I have made myself complete books before, and it's been like, oh. And my husband said to me one time I was doing that, and every time I'd pick up this book, and it was actually for a client, I was falling asleep.
Yep,
And
I've been
my
there.
husband said, what are you going to tell this person? Because every time you pick up that book, you're sitting on the couch and you fall asleep. And it happened like 10 days in a row. I'm a person that I picked up Jamie's book and I read it in like 3 hours. I
Yeah.
couldn't put it
Yes,
down. I
it's a
just
big
wanted
deal.
to keep
Yeah.
reading it. It was just really engaging. But that the expectations that I had for this other book, they weren't being met. And it was like, mm,
Not
really
happening.
difficult. So um, you have to have purpose in your writing. You have a purpose for writing the story, and you have a reader that wants to read it. Who is that?
Yes. I mean,
And
we don't like to say this, but we are a business, right? So you are not
yeah,
like Coke is actually not for everyone. Pepsi drinkers won't drink it. Like they'll actually drink water before they'll drink it. Like every little thing out
mhm,
there. I love, like the green eyeliner and stuff. I just think it's so cute, but it's not for me because
yeah,
I'm of a certain age. Like, I'll buy it for
yeah.
my teenage daughters, or it's just not, I just think it's so cute when people do it. There's nothing, I can't think of anything out there that is specifically for maybe toilet paper.
Everyone.
I don't know. Like, maybe that's the
Oh,
only thing.
toilet paper. No, that's a whole different
But
subject.
then like it
Toilet paper
depends
is
on like
very,
what
very
kind.
specific, very specific. And
Yeah, there's
it's
nothing out there really that you can market
no,
to everyone. And in fact, McDonald's will have 5 different commercials, and so will Coke, specifically targeting one
yeah,
audience.
yes,
Like, if you just pay attention to that, so it cannot be that our book is for everyone. You're going to be the generic cola on the bottom shelf that nobody
mhm,
buys because they
yeah.
don't know how good you are. Like sometimes the generic's better actually, but nobody
Actually, sometimes it is, and yeah,
but
that
no
goes
one
back to
wants to
not
bring it to
having.
the party because nobody wants to be that person who brought generic cola, even
You
if it's
just
better.
transfer it into a saved bottle of Coke or Pepsi, and they never know. Come on, man.
It's like
There's
what
ways
the
around this stuff.
the RC cola. Like, is anyone old enough
Oh,
to remember RC?
oh, well, we lived in North Carolina for a very, very long time, and RC,
Or what's the
just
what's the cola? Is it in South Carolina? There's a specific cola down there.
like Cheerwine,
Yes.
that's North Carolina.
Is that North Carolina?
Cheerwine's North Carolina. South Carolina, I think, and everybody can correct me because, I'm not a font of knowledge. I have some, but sometimes it's skewed. Um, South Carolina, I don't know if it's Sundrop. Oh, wait, maybe Cheerwine, South Carolina, and Sundrop
Drop
is
is
North
North Carolina,
Carolina.
one of them, but you don't ever hear about it from anywhere else. Um,
No, because I mean, it's very regional. There's some really, really regional
it's very
things that
niche, though. They know their
it is very niche.
it's
It is very niche. But so for your ideal reader, you're looking at
how do we
the
get
broad demographics, of course, is where you start. So let's
okay?
look at, the gender, the age.
Hmm.
Um, are they professional? Are they stay-at-home moms? Are they, what are these things? But then you have to be a little bit more specific. And so if let's see, okay, here's Becky pulling out one of these crazy examples. What if you are writing a cozy romance or a cozy mystery that takes place in a knitting shop?
Mm,
Okay. That has a lot of influence on who's going to read that,
yep.
right? Um, and it's coming from you somewhere. I worked with the client and she had a knitting shop years ago, and that is part of her series of books that she's writing. And those clients from the knitting shop are not all of them, but a portion of them are her ideal reader
Right.
because they like the aspect of, you know, having a hobby, a craft, or something that really interests them, but then having something that surrounds that,
Right.
that's, it's romantic, it's cozy, it's whatever it is. Because, if you do something, and I can't think of anything that's coming off the top of my head, but if you have a specific hobby, you know, and somebody is writing a book and the setting has something to do with that hobby, you are going to be interested.
Yes.
Right? And then when you start to learn about the author, you might become even more interested
Like, oh, they
because
actually knit while doing their
they
TikToks.
actually
Like,
knit.
yeah.
And they actually know what they're talking about, and they actually live in a small town. I live in a small town. They actually have relationships that are close knit. Yes, I
Ah.
said it. But that is, if that's what you grow up with and that's what you like and that's familiar to you as a reader, you will go towards those types of stories with those kind of settings. And then, if you find an author that speaks to you
Mhm.
in the way that they write, in the way that they speak, in the things that they believe in, when you know that because you are understanding their authenticity,
Mhm.
you're going to hang with that writer.
Yep.
And so finding the deeper sense of your ideal reader, what do they like? What do they do? Where do they hang out? What's important to them? And, going back to that pain point, we were talking before we got on camera that, if you're a single mom and you have a child, you're concerned about, am I doing the right thing by my child? Am I exposing them to too much, exposing them to too little? Am I doing all these things that's going to make this child become a successful adult? That's a pain point,
Right.
right? Because you are always questioning, questioning, questioning.
Right.
And so one thing that I meant to say is that if I read a book about something that's a pain point for me, again, we can go into a woman, accepting her power, or a woman seeing that she can do more than she thinks she can, and that, people's opinions don't really make or break her, that she can go beyond that. If I read one book like that, and that author is using that theme, I'm going to read another one, because the more I read these things where these women are transforming or these characters are transforming, it starts to build within me that, yes, this is a story and it's fictional, but where is it coming from?
Mhm.
And has this
Right.
author experienced that? And is she on the other side of it? And I'm going to keep reading what she's saying, or he's saying, because I'm getting hopeful.
Right.
There's a thread of hope going through here that makes me go, yes, I'm in reality. I understand these are fictional characters, but where do they come from? They're most likely based on somebody's reality,
Right. And
right?
it's something that you enjoy seeing. Like, I really like action films. I really, really like them. And I think it hits a pain point of there is a a protector out there who will go to the ends of the earth at some point to
Yes.
get, and I especially love it when it's Guy Ritchie and it's based on a true story and you go, "See?" Like,
Yeah.
if and it's
Yeah.
just it's one of those things where you might not even as the consumer understand your pain point. Like you were saying, like, as moms, we're always worried about that. But if you think about the books that you're like, "Oh, yeah, that was great," because it hits something within you where you're like, yes, I that just made me feel like the world can be a little bit better and it can, like, the things that I'm worried about, maybe I they can be solved or resolved, or
Yes.
there is a hope
Or
there.
not so big.
Yes.
'Cause, we all, I mean, I know I can only speak for myself, but, I can take something and be like, "Oh, I don't know how I'm gonna," it's like, "This is so big," and it's like, and then you look at it and you're like, "Ah, that was stupid." And so one thing that I had to do to myself is, and then my husband gets really annoyed with me because, I started saying about 20 years ago, and I said this to my son yesterday, "In the scheme of things, how big is this problem that I am blowing up in my mind?"
Oh, yeah.
So bringing it back down so it's manageable, and understanding that, you can fix things.
Yeah.
But if you let them turn into huge monsters, it's harder. And if you can read something where your character starts that way and then starts to understand that the reality, and again, there's fear involved there, can change something.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just it makes you think that if I react this way because of something that has happened in my past, and I start seeing in through these characters that there are options
Mhm.
other than letting this fear rule my life or let this fear change how I react to things or what I do, then you really can start thinking, you know, it's not like you're reading a psychology book, but it does get in your head
Yeah.
and it makes you go, um, this is a good story. This makes sense to me. And maybe again, it's food for thought. It's your reader being transformed by something that you're writing. And if you're reaching that correct reader, it's gonna be it's gonna
Yes.
be good for them,
It's going to
right?
be good for them. It's like I picked up, I don't know, a book. I put so many things on my Kindle, and I can see why if I was 25 years younger, I would have just consumed it in one night. Right? So
Mhm.
I am no it doesn't mean that a woman in her mid 40s doesn't read it. Obviously people do, but I'm no longer her ideal reader, right? It just
Right.
That's all we're saying here. So the pain points there of like you're in college, everything's new, like you're breaking up and a lot more than when you're in your 40s. You probably don't have kids, whatever it is. Whereas like I have with Bended Love, she's the same age but didn't go to college, like does have a kid. These are all these different pain points that will appeal to that smaller reader. So when we're
Mhm.
going to like demographics down to like we have to keep going, right? We have to
Mhm.
keep niching down. So I do have certain themes, but then depending on the specific, I guess, mood that you're in, that will even influence even further my ideal reader for each book. I think
Yes.
for every book that you write, that doesn't mean that people won't move along with you, because if you write small town, you have a series and
Mhm.
now people like it, and now you say, okay, now I'm going to experiment with billionaire. Not everyone will go with you, but a large chunk will go with you because they like how you
Your
write
story.
and
Well,
your
and
themes.
if you are really this is a little bit off subject, but if you are a writer and you are constantly honing your craft and you're constantly learning new things, and to me, character development is such a huge part of the book. A plot is great, but I want really deep characters. When I was 20, I didn't really I was more into the kissing and the happy ending and the thing. And so those were the types of books that I would
Yeah.
read. But as I've gotten older, I really want to see depth of character. I want to see that I'm thinking about this person, and maybe I'm thinking about this person in relation to me. And
Yeah.
I'm saying, "Oh, don't do that. No, don't
Yeah.
do that."
Exactly.
You know?
Oh, dang it. Why'd you get just call her?
But yes, so your reader will change and you will change too as you get older, as you get more experience, as you do whatever. Not necessarily older because depending on when you start your
Mhm.
writing career or your writing. But changes in your life change you and they change your story. And
Mm,
so one book may have a little different ideal reader, but there's still the basis
yeah.
of you're a good writer. I know who you are. I know what you bring. And you're meeting the expectations that I have.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, I kind of fought against, getting older, nothing you can fight against that, but reading more mature main female characters. I was like, no, I want my character to be pretty and blonde and boppy and blah, blah. And then I'm like, no, this is just not doing it for me now.
Right.
This is
Right.
not
Yeah.
what I want to read. But if I like the author, then I will investigate books that he or she has to
Hmm.
see if there's something in a character that I may have missed or I'm not, or they've grown some and I'm only reading this type of book that
Yeah.
they're writing.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to stay with the authors that I love. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah. You want to
It's just
grow with
it's
them. Like,
yeah.
and you know what? Even if I move on from authors, I will still recommend them because
Oh,
I am a terrible super fan, I have to say. I
oh,
because
I
I
am
just
too.
I read
I'm
so
like,
much, but like I still love Nora Roberts, even though she's not actually on my nightstand at the moment. But I would
yeah.
still like tell people she's an excellent writer. Barbara Kingsolver went through a phase of her. I'm a phase reader, I think, more than anything.
Well, there's different things and different things going on in your life.
Yeah.
I never would have been a romantasy or I've always been curious about magic and mythical things, and yeah, I love that. But I was reading like just straight up contemporary romance, and then I had one of my practicum clients wrote a romantasy, and I was enthralled with this book.
Yeah.
And I was like, it brought back things that I read when I was younger. Because you read mythology, you read
Yeah.
princess
Yeah.
myths and all of that. And so it brought that back, but it was done in a mature, developed way that still had all that magic, but fabulous characters.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I will read anything that this woman writes. And I'm so glad she's going into her second book. Um, and it was really wonderful. And that made me go, I follow her, of course, on her Substack, and she makes recommendations, and I'm like, okay,
Yep. Yeah.
I'm pulling this one, even though I wouldn't normally have been a romantasy reader, but now I'm interested. I'm really interested, and I want to see who writes like her. So, that's just part of learning your ideal reader and listening and interacting with them. You
And
know.
I think this constantly ties back to the first step of understanding your author brand and who you are as an
Hmm.
author and what you are going to put forth. And I come back to this a lot because there's so much out there now. Like authors used to be able to just write their thing, their editor would help them. It would get pushed
Hmm.
out into the world and everyone would just be like, "Oh, that's Stephen King, he writes horror."
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Right.
and now we are overly influenced by social media, by other things that by writing to market and this is the new thing and what is coming up and it's so easy to be swayed into all of these things and then to end up possibly with a book that wasn't really a story you wanted to write, or putting out your book and like it can bomb if you get it to the wrong ideal reader, because
Yeah.
that's just not what they're looking for. And
No, and there come those bad reviews.
they're willing to give you the bad review. So in the 80s and 90s, people would read a book and they'd be like, "Nah," but there was no place to go rant about it other than
Yeah.
their book club. I didn't like it. I didn't understand this. Fine. Now there's a place where everyone can rant about it. So it is really important to understand what you're writing. For me, like in being authentic and in accepting it, I think being very comfortable in your craft, being comfortable in the fact that you're constantly learning, but
Hmm.
also being very comfortable in who you are and what you're trying to write. Because now when a review comes back to me and says, "Well, I wish the character was this," I can say, "Well, that's great, but that's not the story." I'm
Yeah.
comfortable saying that because I know what I'm trying to do. Whereas like in the beginning, you go, "Well, why don't you like it? Well, why? Well,
Oh,
what
let me
should?"
change that because I might get 2 more books sold.
Right. And
Yeah.
then you end up being, basically giving away your power,
Yeah.
trying to be something for everyone, right? This probably fits women a
Yeah.
lot. It's like, and
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to help you all not do, because it doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't benefit you, your books, or anyone.
No, it doesn't. And then we'll talk about this the next time when we'll talk about, okay, so when you identify your ideal reader, where do you find them? And
Yeah.
where do they hang out? And how do you do that? But it's again, it's time for reflection about
Mhm.
why you're writing what you're writing. Who does it appeal to? Who is it for? When you sit down and write a story, Kat, do you think, this is a story for 12-year-old cheerleaders?
No.
But as a writer, you sit down and you think, all right, this is my story. Who's going to love this story?
Mhm.
What are the things in here that are going to be important? Why am I writing this? What is this for? Why is it this story right now? And who do I see reading this story?
Right. Right.
And again, it's not just this is going to be a middle-aged woman that's retired or whatever. That's got to be a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah.
So it's again, it's reflection, and I will say this again, marketing your books, you do have to understand that if your goal is to sell your books, you need to think about this stuff.
Yes.
Because once you establish these pillars of who you are, what is your brand, why are you doing what you're doing, and then you are comfortable with who your ideal reader is, and you're thinking about it and you're questioning it. I mean, I think for the most part, writers are curious. So, ask yourself these questions. We're going to have a worksheet in the show notes. I love saying that. It's just like great in the show notes. That will give you some steps and some things to think about to find your ideal reader. And then next time we will talk about actually where do they
Where-
hang out? Where do you find
Right.
them? How do
But
you
you
do
need to
this?
know
Because
who they are so that you can
right,
find out where they're hanging out, because my ideal reader is probably not on Reddit, but
yeah,
the sci-fi dude, or whoever, I can't think of a name right now. Like
the
they
sci-fi
probably are.
dude,
They
the
might be
military
on Reddit,
sci-fi guy. Yeah,
right? Like,
you know,
so this is going to influence where you put it on the shelves and where you go find it, and where you spend your money on marketing and where you don't,
yeah,
or your
yeah.
time. So I would even say, like, if you get tripped up thinking about who they are, you can start by saying, who are they not? And that can also help you.
That's a good one. You just showed me up. Perfect, Kat.
But it just depends on how your brain works, right? Like,
Well,
how,
yeah,
if this is overwhelming you, you think, who is the person that you would not put into your book into their hands? Not because you don't like them, but because you just know it's not going to fulfill them. I have a
right.
friend who's always giving me books, and I'm always like, I'm not going to like this book, or I will like it ish, but I will not. We just have like these
I
opposites.
have one of those friends too, and she's always trying to get me to read books. I'm like, okay. One of the hazards of being a book coach is that you read a ton and you read differently in a lot of cases. And it's
Yeah.
very difficult sometimes to separate. Okay. Like I sometimes have to sit down and I'm picking up a book just for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't edit this.
Yeah.
Don't
Don't
analyze it.
psychoanalyze.
Just read it and see where it takes you. And so when I realize that I'm in a book and I'm not thinking about anything but this story and I'm not criticizing it and I'm not finding flaws or, editing issues, I'm like, daggone, this is
This
good.
is a good book.
I love this. This is why I read, but you do have to, it's like putting on a different hat.
Yes.
So, um, I had a point
Yes.
with that, but daggone it, what was it? And why am I saying daggone it today? Because normally I'm cussing.
Because
Mm.
you live in Virginia.
Hey,
I did go out
West
to your neck
Virginia.
of the woods, and they have a certain accent that I was like, I have never heard that accent before. Man, this country.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yes,
regional accents are all over the place. I mean,
regional
here
accents
where I
are.
live now, it's very Appalachian, so it's a totally different,
That's what it is
idioms are different.
Appalachian.
Where I come from, it was very uh it was Southern
Refined
sounding, but
Southern.
not like you're coming from Alabama. Like
Yeah.
my family used to laugh at me because I had a teacher in sixth grade, and she's actually the one that really turned me on to reading. One of the ones, and her name was Mrs. Fry.
Fry. Yes.
Mrs. Fry. And I would say, and everybody, was like, who's your teacher, Mrs. Fry? And then my sister would go, what do you need to put in that drink? I'm like, I'll get some ice.
My kids did that when they moved from
Yeah.
France. The middle one came home with a Southern accent because her teacher was really Alabama, and we were in Texas. And I was like, how is this possible?
Well, I'm like a mina bird. I will mimic if I'm around
I
somebody and they
do.
have specific speech patterns.
I
I
know.
find myself not mocking them, but I'm listening to it and I start
You have
mimicking.
the ear for
Although
it.
I've never been able to mimic a British accent.
Oh,
I need to hang around Stuart Wakefield more because he's a
you
coach and
you get
a
me over
romance
in.
writer. And
Oh my gosh, my husband's like, I can't stand it when you get around British people, because I lived in Northern Ireland for the longest time, and I can mimic really well. And
well,
I don't think of it. I just
and
do it. And
my husband's like, why are like I'm watching the Viscountess, the American Viscountess. She's from Chicago, but she's married to the 12th Earl of Sandwich, and she lives in Dorset. And her big house is called Mapperton, and she's been there for 20 years, and she does all her stuff. And I've started saying, and my husband's like, "What?" Like, well, there's bits and bobs over here, and it's
What?
like, what?
What are we talking about? Yeah, I
It's
came home saying rubbish in
oh yeah,
Wisconsin, and everyone was like, "I don't under where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm
yeah,
from here."
yes, yeah. So it's interesting,
Anyway,
but
we got completely off
we got
subject.
sidetracked. This is what we do. So next time we're going to talk about where to find your ideal readers, and then we're going to have that thing in the show notes,
Yep.
and
It will be
uh,
easier to find them if you've identified them. We're just going to push that home. Get the worksheet downloaded and spend some
and look
time
at
thinking
your
about it.
yeah, yeah, because when you're selling a book, even though marketing is not selling, I had to have this conversation with somebody this morning. You need to look towards where that book needs to land and
Yes.
whose hands it needs to be in, and
Yes.
it needs to be specific.
Yes.
And it's again with marketing, it's research, it's the slow game, it's the build, it's the connect, it's all these things. But once you get through your ideal reader and you know where they're hanging out, now you're armed with, I know why I'm writing, I know who I am, I know who my book needs to go to, I know who it needs to get in front of. And now I can start working on messaging, content, and strategy for reaching these people.
Yep.
And I will do it in a way that's comfortable for me because I am understanding of these first two things that will help me to connect with these readers and start building a fan base.
Yes.
And then from that, when your book comes out, guess what? Somebody's expecting it and they want to buy it.
Yes. And you will the month thinking about your ideal reader is going to be time well spent rather than trying to defy what we're saying and what everyone else says who knows what they're
Yeah.
who's already gone through this and then having to go work backwards. So this is something that we're also going to workshop in June when we have our next live that we will be able to delve even deeper. So if you guys have spent time thinking about your ideal reader, the more that you have niched your way down, the more Becky will be able to be like, and one more level. And it's going to be so much easier. Let me tell you, I've tried to market to everybody. I've tried to market to a slightly niched and then slightly and then like, and it's just so much easier to find it way in the beginning. Just do it.
Yes. And thank you for putting all that pressure and expectation on me, Pat.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing though, if you come not having thought about your ideal reader, there's not enough time for Becky to help you.
Well, and then just
It's
like
not a
you did earlier, flip it around. Why are you an ideal reader and who are your authors?
right, right.
So think about that. What appeals to you? Because that might be a really good place for some people, depending on how they think, to start.
Yeah,
Why do
yeah.
you read what you read?
Mhm.
And what's the transformation that you receive when you find a book that's really, really
Yeah,
good and really hits those notes for you?
exactly.
Who does that and how do they do it?
Yeah.
So
What is
that's
yeah.
some food for thought. Now, Kat is going to say something about social media.
Oh my gosh. Have you checked my social media?
I
So
watch your social media, and one thing I will say to anyone who's listening is when you see things on your social media feeds, respond to them,
yes.
even if it's just a heart. And if somebody asks a question and you have an answer that's nice and kind, because we believe in kindness only,
Yes.
um,
Only.
respond.
Yes.
Engage with somebody because that is so important. And when people are out there putting themselves out on social media, and Kat does a brilliant job of it, and I'm watching you as you are getting narrower and narrower in, and
Narrow.
I'm really understanding who your ideal reader is. Before I
Right.
probably couldn't tell, but now
Nope.
I'm seeing it.
Gonna-
So respond and say something nice, say something kind, share it.
Yes.
Um, there's a lot of good information that people have. And if it appeals to you and if it's something that's valuable, pass it on because
Yes.
you would want somebody to do that for you. So
Absolutely. Yes.
that's my little, public
That's where
announcement.
like it gets tricky because people say, you can do your social media in 15 minutes a day. And I do believe I took like a whole 48 hours off. I
Hey,
had it is nice to have schedulers, but it's true if people take the time to respond to you or to comment, even a thank you or whatever, it will go a long way. even if you're just doing it for interaction, I hope that you're more authentic than that. But like, people that actually took the time to not only look at your social media, but to click on it and then to comment, yes, it will go far. But I will say the more that I work on this, the easier it is to especially stop making the poor decisions of putting my book in places where it probably shouldn't go. And like I had to reflect on that this last week when last fall I had signed up for some stuff that's now coming up. And I'm thinking, okay, if I had not panicked, because
I
we
wouldn't
all
be
kind of
doing
get into
this.
that panic,
Yeah.
if I had gone back to my pillars and well, if I had them at and understood like what are the things more than anything, this is helping me not get involved in things that it's not that I'm not interested possibly as a reader, but they don't fit my author brand and they are not going to fit my book. Therefore, and it's time, it's money, it's time away from the family, it's busyness. So this is helping me that way. And then I am not a social media person that is just gaining 10,000 followers a day. Does that exist? I don't believe those people. But I am finding people who are more interested in my book than if I had just sent it out, right? And I'm able to better analyze from a non-panicked point of view because I
And I
understand where I'm coming from.
and being able to say no is very, very it's liberating. It's scary. I had an offer a couple of months ago and about doing a podcast, and I learned from another coach, editor, just, just to before you say yes to everything,
Mhm.
look at what it is that where are you placing yourself? And I was so flattered, and then I looked at the the content, and I'm like, this is not for me. This is not what I.
That was smart though to look at it.
And it because a friend of ours who's a coach was like, so that when you do something that that's social media wise or podcast or video or whatever, it's out there forever and people will associate you with that.
Oh god, that's kind of scary.
And I was like, no, because I need to practice what I'm preaching, and so to make a better decision, and I said no, and I was like
Wow,
kind
good
of
for
proud of myself
you. Good for you.
because again, if it's not the right forum, these people that listen, they're not going to become clients of mine. They're not
Yeah.
going to be people who I work with. They're not going to really understand what I do or what or how I do it, because I'm not necessarily typical in how I approach things. And it's like, why am I throwing myself out there for something that's not going to fit? So, and I
That's
was scared, and I was like, oh, and then I was like, no, go with your gut. Go with
yeah.
what you know works for you. Go with what you know about yourself. And so you know,
But it's
it was hard
a
though.
lot easier to say no. It's nicer to say no comfortably and confidently. That's not like, oh, I'm scared of it. It's like, no, this doesn't fit who I am. I'm not going to go on I mean, I wouldn't say no to like, is it Tin House? I don't know. Like it's kind of like the NPR book. Like those are not my ideal reader. It would be
Mm.
flattering. It sure would
Yes.
be
Well, and
flattering.
that's the thing, because when you're struggling and
Yes, you
you
say
have this
yes to
desire
something.
to bring in, like for me, to have the ability to help more writers. And, I always go back, well, all news is good news, any publicity is good publicity, and I don't necessarily believe that.
I don't know
And
if I believe
so
that anymore. Like that's
no,
coming from a
because
point where like there wasn't that much publicity. Now
yeah,
it's
and
like,
so
ugh,
it's better and it feels better to be discerning in the decisions that I'm making and not let myself knee jerk and or let my ego step in and go, oh, they want me. They want 900,000 different people. They're filling slots. So,
and
you
I
know,
will say like the more that you understand your ideal reader too, as I put out my art copies, like me and Savannah from PS I Love You, we went through and I gave her permission to cut it down to about 2/3 of who signed up,
Mhm.
because it all really I mean, ARC readers are pretty important, right? You really want the book in the right hands. But because I know exactly who I'm looking for, and like, okay, they don't like this, they don't like that. I put the trigger of the war. I will say 8 years ago, I would have said, say yes to everybody,
Yes. And then
you
I'll pay
know?
for it.
Yeah, and then I'll pay for it, and then, and that's just not. So these are this author, authenticity, the brand, the ideal reader, it's all going to make it all so much easier. And just
Yeah.
believe me, because I've done it the hard way.
All right. So is that our social media minute? Are we
That is
done with
our
that?
social media minute. Go follow me on social media if you like closed door.
Yes. So, yes,
Well,
good
right now,
closed
so I
door.
will say, like, right now I'm going hardcore on the closed door to differentiate romance. And then I was thinking, and you can tell me next week, pretty soon I will probably go into more of like the themes, or in like interspersing themes of what I touch on. So right now I'm going hardcore closed door because I have an art coming out, and it's a contemporary romance, but it is closed door. So I want to make sure I'm getting those readers. So
And we want to make sure that your readers and your followers understand the context in which you are making these
yeah.
reels because they have to have context.
What?
I'm sorry, but they will have to understand why and the closed door is very apparent. I don't want you to get muddled with then going to something else that may be, we
Mm-mm.
want to make sure that you're following that messaging correctly
Yes.
so that they continue to go, okay, so this is a closed door and the characters are dealing with this theme,
Hmm.
and we make that messaging very clear
So you
as
might
you're
have you
putting
might
things
have
in.
an ability to throw me under the bus next month. Like, say,
I hate
no,
throwing you
Cat,
under
you
the
muddled
bus.
it. Stop it.
I'll tell you way before then because I don't want you
I
wasting.
know you will. I'll just have to remember and make a note. All right. So everyone go into the show notes and download your worksheet so that you are ready for next month when we're going to talk about how to get there. And remember that in June, we don't have a date yet, but it will be coming for the next live. So we will be talking about all these things and your questions and all that. So
And we do want to leave you with one marketing mindset.
yes, one marketing mindset. Mhm.
Don't have to do all the things. You don't have to
Remember,
do everything.
remember.
Be strategic.
I feel like you're
Be
talking to me.
consistent. Be consistent. Be
Yes.
doing something that is sustainable and that fits with who you are as a writer and what is going to work to reach your ideal reader. And we'll get more into that next time we meet. But don't put that pressure on yourself of thinking that you have to do everything because it usually just does not work. So,
It'll just make you feel insane.
yeah, keep telling yourself, stop overwhelming yourself. I'm going to choose one or two things and I will
Mhm.
concentrate on those.
Yes. And like a really great coach once told me, if you do 10 things, you have no idea which one is working, right?
Mhm.
So, if you feel like, no, but I have to do all the things, actually, you won't know which one is working. So it is much better to
Yeah, it's
maybe
like becoming a really good volleyball player instead of becoming a hockey player, a volleyball player, a tennis coach, because what are you really deciding you're going to do and what is really going to work for you and how will people know where they should be with you? Because,
exactly.
hockey and volleyball, they're a lot different.
Yes.
So don't do everything. You don't have to. You don't,
Don't do everything.
just saying, just think about it before you make decisions to do a lot of things that you might not be able to consistently and sustainably do and
Yes,
be comfortable with. So
absolutely. All right.
that's that's the end of my spiel for today.
That's the end of our spiel for the month. So get ready, guys, for next month when we go into how to find your ideal reader. See you guys.
And thank you. Bye.
Bye.